You might think that since my profile picture is murder drones and most of my content is actually about murder drones, that I think that it is a perfect show. No, not really. I have a lot of problems with the show. That's why I'm doing this tier list. I will be detailed in this tier list and I will say everything that I liked or disliked about each episode. But notice that I will spoil some stuff, so if you didn't watch the series yet, go watch it now. So, starting off with the pilot. The pilot, in my opinion, is the most different episode than the rest, which is usual because, well, it's a pilot. The pilot of Murder Drones introduces the characters pretty well, actually, each one's personality and actions, while having events that prevents the episode from being boring. The action is pretty good. There are plenty of fight scenes which are fun to watch. The horror element is not bad either. It's not too scary, but it can make you feel unsettled sometimes. And the humor is kind of okay. There are some okay jokes with some okay execution. Sometimes. It's just sometimes come into weird places that humor shouldn't meet. But I have some problems with the episode's writing. First, when N lands between Uzi and her father, Uzi just stands there afterwards. She tells her dad to move and he just keeps talking because he is an idiot. And N is just standing there for some reason. And after talking too much, N just snaps out of it and realizes that, oh, I should be killing, and just stabs her. I feel that this scene was kind of stretched. Another issue I have is the last fight scene, when Uzi threw the high branded pen at Jay's face and she was just standing there. Then when Jay took the pen out of her face, she just started describing the pen's quality and Uzi literally jumped and stomped in her face. I mean, what? That scene was like that for the joke. And that's why I have some issues with the humor in this episode and Murder Drones in general. And although the animation is a significant step up from their previous show, Sunset Paradise, it's still not the best animation. The animations for the characters and the oil specifically feels janky a little bit, and I believe that they used motion tracking for the characters' animations. But overall, this episode is solid as a pilot, and I will put it in A tier. So, after a full year of waiting since the pilot, episode 2 was released. And I gotta say that the team truly took their time to produce this high quality episode. The animation is clean, mostly except for the hand scene. The lighting seems to be changed too. It's now darker and shinier. The horror element is also a step up from the pilot. The build-up to the battle was pretty good actually. It showcases how dangerous the Eldritch monster is, especially that scene where N shoots the missile to reveal this great long worm of a monster. However, the writing direction for this episode is a little bit weird. It was kind of confusing for me for the first time. They just go somewhere to do something for some reason that I didn't know. And after a long build-up, we finally meet the antagonist, Eldritch J, and the first thing we see from it is getting scared of Thad. I mean, yeah, Thad is a Chad, I know, but you almost killed him, why are you scared? And then, after all of this horror, the first line of this obscure creature was,
"We're busy and anyway, so whatever, so lame."
Where did all this scary monster vibe go? I mean, come on, you don't have to throw jokes everywhere. But I gotta say, the way Eldritch J tricked Uzi by using the hologram was kind of insane actually. And also her ripping off Khan in half was kind of satisfying. I mean, come on, everyone agrees that Khan is terrible anyways. But unfortunately, the way she was defeated was a little meh. This crazy monstrosity that kept hunting down drones and can easily trick anyone by its horrifying holograms was defeated by a gun exploding, literally. It's definitely not the best way to end the fight, but overall, this episode is a step up from the pilot in terms of quality. But the writing could be way better than this, because I think this episode is the most forgettable one, so I will put it in B tier. Well, episode 3 is an interesting one. It's amazing, the horror element is great. The first thing you see in that episode is that mysterious Russian girl in that previous episode literally ripping another drone's hand. The action is also incredible. There is an almost 5 minutes long fight scene, and the good thing is that the humor doesn't ruin the action as much as it did in the previous episodes. Also, I feel like this episode has the most Liam Vickers style. Genuinely, when I first knew that the episode was about prom, I was kind of concerned because I hate shipping and I thought that they might overdo the shipping in this episode, but after I watched it, I think that they did it pretty well actually. And also I think that this shipping thing between Inda and Uzi is going to play a role later in the episodes. And about this episode, there aren't much issues to address here. The only thing is that the last scene where Tessa and Jay come out of the ship felt like it was a little early when episodes 4 and 5 came out. It was like, oh look, Jay and Tessa are here, and then we never saw them until episode 5. But anyways, I think that this episode is actually fantastic. I will put it in S tier without even hesitating. So, episode 4. Yeah, that thing. I would be a little bit controversial here, but I genuinely think it's pretty overrated actually. This episode is actually great. I mean, the horror element was insane. Seeing the character that the whole plot is revolving around turns into an antagonist and start killing other drones is actually pretty crazy. And the way she just eats them is horrifying. It was a little bit confusing at first. Also, the introduction of this episode was interesting at first, but it quickly became boring. There wasn't that much at the beginning to keep me interested, and I felt that it was a little bit lacking. Although the action is indeed really good, the way Uzi just moves is ugh. Unfortunately, the way this fight ended was the most absurd thing I've ever seen in Murder Drones. I mean, when Uzi was almost going to kill V, and finally showed up, not to help in the fight, but to literally hold Uzi with one hand and throw her high up in the sky. And then after all of that fight scene, they just start talking together. I mean, come on, the most thing that kept me interested in the episode just got ruined just because of like shipping and stuff. But after all, this episode was pretty good for the first watch, because the issues won't be noticeable unless you rewatch the episode multiple times. But to be honest, something I cannot get bored of in this episode is just the music. I mean, listen to this.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
But after all, most of my rating to these episodes comes from me rewatching the episode, because if I didn't rewatch the episode multiple times, I would give it an easy S tier. But after rewatching it, I started to notice the issues, so I will give it a C tier. So I've seen a lot of people hate on episode 5 for various reasons. Even some think it's the worst episode, but for me, I think it's actually pretty decent. Yeah, of course, it's not perfect, not even close, but I actually don't really hate it. So starting off, this episode probably has the best character interactions in the whole show. I mean, just the way these characters act just has a lot of personality. Please someone help me, I'm starting to feel that Sin is adorable. But here are where the problems start. The action in this episode was kind of not there. Surprisingly, there are no big fight scenes like the other episodes, which is kind of weird. But the horror elements of this episode is not that bad. I mean, the way Sin turns from this cuteness to this monster is horrifying. But the humor in this episode is very, very weird. But somehow it could actually make me laugh. But this humor doesn't fit all people like it did with me, and I understand it. But I think we all agree that the places these jokes were placed in are the worst like ever possible. After like an intense scene, there's just like a joke. That's it. Hi there, Editor Me is here, and I wanted to say that I rewatched the episode a couple of times and I noticed some more issues, like the confusing blend between the memories and the real time, and the way we see stuff in and V's memories where they aren't even there, and also the lack of the feeling of danger in this episode, because the cast and the memories probably cannot die, because they still exist in the real time, which made me careless about whatever is happening in their memories. Also, this whole episode feels like it's just to introduce Sin, and that's it. They probably didn't really care about the other stuff, and that's why it's kind of bad, and I will put it in D tier. I'm not explaining myself. This episode is a masterpiece. It has great action. The episode is full to the brim with action and suspense. And as a person who is used to see gore, I was never even intimidated when watching most of Murder Drones. Not even when characters literally get split in half. But the way this episode delivers horror made me literally get terrified watching a single finger gets cut down. Not to mention that this is the first episode that we actually see blood, not only oil. But one issue people have with this episode is the pacing, and I kind of understand it. But for me, it only adds more to the suspense of the episode. And we also have shipping, like a lot of shipping. And actually, I don't really mind it. And finally, I get to address the ending and say that I don't really care about V's sacrifice. I felt like it was a little bit forced. Other than the fact that they killed her because they want a cliffhanger, because episode 7 is just coming very late, but I feel like she was more of an obstacle for Liam to write, because the main focus is on In and Uzi. Hi, editor me talking again, and I'm here to address some more issues that I noticed with the last scene. Like, for example, in this scene where V points her gun at the Sentinel, and then she just stares at it while these two are communicating using the face screen. And this actually kind of proves my point that V doesn't get much care in the writing as much as in and Uzi. Also, another issue is, again with V, is where she is going to blast the Sentinel's head off, then suddenly another Sentinel appears to ruin the party, and she just stares at it as it slowly approaches the left slot and destroys it. I mean, shoot the freaking Sentinel that you almost killed, but even though the writing at the end was poor, it is still not enough to ruin the rest of the episode because the rest literally hits hard.